Hey, what's up, guys? So today I got a small profile update, and while it's not a completely full on update because I am missing a couple cards from New Caprina, I ordered it but it hasn't arrived yet. But yeah, I made a couple small changes, and we'll talk about some of the new cards that I was thinking, some strategies I was thinking about using them in, stuff like that. And yeah, so for the most part, my deck has more or less remained the same. The side deck has changed a bit, just to adapt with the new meta and stuff like that. And so I've definitely changed around the side deck a little bit and playing around with that. In terms of the deck, um, can't really say too much has changed. I think I changed like 2 or 3 cards in the deck. Um, Maybe. Let me think about it. Yeah, it's not too much, honestly. So I'll kind of um, go through the deck in terms of cards that I've changed. So if you've already seen my previous update profiles, I don't want to bore you with the same sort of like content and whatnot. But I'll just kind of talk about it. The card I did swap out, and namely, it's gonna focus on the side deck today. I think this side deck is where most of the changes are gonna be made and gonna be tested. And yeah, we'll go through there. So in terms of the deck, let me just, I already have them sorted out, but the main card here I want to show off, and I guess these in case I didn't talk about that. And that's really it. So um, quickly, let's talk about. I'll leave her to the side, but I'll talk about what I've done with in terms of the mana base. Mana base wise, I decided to finally bump the filter lands up to 3, and so now I have 2 gates and 2 sunkens. And yeah, so the sunken is namely here to help with sometimes casting dam double black, and to also make my one swamp into a blue source. So that's why we have this one sunken ruins. And then mystic gates. I took out the um, glacial fortress and just added another gate in here, and I think this works a little bit better, so I can kind of always make the colors I need off of the mystic gates and um, an island of any kind. So yeah, and that was working pretty well. Um, Other than that, I don't think that my mana has really changed too much. I thought about adding Aurora or either Aurora or what's the other land called? Um, Ijangjo, Ijangjo. I forgot the white land. I thought about adding those into the deck, but because I'm 3 colors, I don't think I can afford to play more lands that are just single color or just single um, sources. So I end up just not putting Aurora or the other white land in. They're good. I've used them to good success in like other formats or in just 2 color decks. But in this particular 3 color deck, I don't think I can squeeze them in and have yeah. Well, I guess my mana base is already greedy, so um, I can't really afford to squeeze or make it more greedy. Otherwise, I'm gonna get screwed by um, you know colors. Not getting the colors I need or getting screwed by Blood Moon. So that's the main thing. Main card I want to talk about today is gonna be the Wandering Emperor. So I took out, I ended up taking out Cryptic Command completely from my deck because it was just kind of there as a placeholder. I never really had any reason to play it, especially in today's meta where everything's kind of like low threat, lower on the curve. 4 mana counterspell is not too great, and yeah, returning a permanent doesn't seem to really do too much either. Like I've used it to good effects if my opponent has been land stuck. I use Cryptic Command to kind of screw him out of mana. But in this day and age, a lot of decks can operate on very few lands. The only decks that operate on high land counts are going to be like the control decks, the big like Titan decks, Tron, 4 color control. Those are the only decks that really need a lot of lands to work. Where every other deck like Murktide, Yawgmoth, Grixis Death Shadow, even Jun, they need very low land count, and so for me, Cryptic Command wasn't really doing too much, and yeah, just finding that I just rather have another win condition over another counter spell, I guess. So adding in the Emperor now. In this number, I only have one so far. I'm thinking about adding maybe a second one, and a card I might drop down a little bit, maybe be a Snapcaster. But I'm a little conflicted on that because the Snapcaster plus Wandering Emperor have worked surprisingly well together in the sense that you can flash both in, pump up the Snapcaster, give it make it 3-2, and give it first strike, which makes it a good blocker. But that requires 6 mana. The better thing is to already have a Snapcaster on board and already get the value off the Snapcaster, and then you flash in the Wandering Emperor if someone's attacking you with like a 3/3 body. You flash her in, give Snapcaster first strike, and yeah, you win off in that trade there. That's usually how you want to do it. Otherwise, if your opponent just taps all their creatures to attack you, you can always flash her in, remove one of the attackers, and then get value off of her later. So I I think I think I do like Snapcaster with the Wandering Emperor. I want to be able to play either like 3 Solitudes, 3 Snapcasters, and 2 Wandering Emperor. Maybe that's what I'm thinking might be an ideal number, but I'm not sure. Right now I'm running 4 Snapcasters, 2 Solitudes, and 1 Wandering Emperor. If I were to bump her up, I'm not quite sure what I would take out. Maybe a Jace, I would think, would be the card to drop, or maybe another um, removal spell or something. But I don't think I like all my removals, so I don't think I'll touch my removal spell. Like the prismatic endings and the dams and the marches and stuff like that. I think I'll keep that the same. So for now, I'm just gonna play 1 Emperor and then 4 Snaps and 2 Solitudes. That's what I currently have in my card collection in order to play, and I'll test it out more. I did go out and play a game with this deck yesterday. Now I might just talk about that in a second. Unfortunately, I never saw her in my game, so I can't really say she was good or not. I mean, I've been playing the Wandering Emperor in my Azura's control deck in Pioneer or the Explorer format on Arena, and she's done a wonderful job at kind of being a threat and keeping my opponent's threats at bay. So she's definitely has paid for herself in terms of like her usefulness in the deck in the control deck. So I think she's kind of like gonna be moving forward. I think she's gonna be a staple in any sort of control deck because she's just her flash ability and her ability to remove target, and then her ability to become a threat herself. Um, Pretty good there. So that's what I want to talk about there in terms of the actual changes I made. Now I've been asked about new ideas for the deck, new cards I might try out for that's coming out from New Capenna, and yeah, I discussed it with my friends. I discussed it with some other um, people and stuff like that, and we've all had sort of all different ideas at the moment. Obviously, the Obscurus charm is gonna be like the most talk about thing, you know. Now, I I don't know about Obscurus charm honestly. Being able to get back to fairy on your opponent's turn is always gonna be really powerful. But because the deck, blue white control, and even Esper or even Jeskai, they have very little multicolored permanence in their deck, and so you're stuck with just naming Teferi, being able to revive Teferi, and he's not always going to be the answer you need. And so I don't know if it's worth running maybe one copy, 2 copies in a Esper deck, but I don't know. I don't. I've been looking through and combing for other good multicolor cards that are CMC 3 and lower in order to combo it off with the Escorus charm. And if I only found maybe a handful, like not even a handful, maybe 2 or 3 that might be worth playing. And I'll just mention them here. The first one I thought of was gonna be Kaito. So if you play Kaito, you know, um, you can get him on the board on your opponent's turn. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a flash ability like the Emperor, so bringing him back on your opponent's turn doesn't really do anything. Bringing him back on your turn, he's okay. Like you can make a 1/1, or if you have bodies on the board already, you can attack with them and draw off of his plus ability. But outside of that, I'm gonna have a hard time saying that Kaito is gonna do the deck too much. Mainly because we don't really have that many creatures, and just all of his abilities, they are good for being a 3 mana planeswalker, but they're not. I don't think they're good enough to warrant him in a control deck. And I don't think he doesn't have the threat presence like the Emperor does. Like he's a good card, just not as threatening as she is. So I don't think Kaito will be a good choice to go. Um, his ultimate sounds cool. Like you can, if you ever get the ultimate with him and you deal damage to someone, yes, you can like bring out a Snapcaster or like maybe a Grief from the deck or something like that. But there's not many blue or black creatures you'll be playing in a control deck. Anyways, the only blue creature that's worth it is either Subtlety or a Snapcaster. In terms of black creature, almost nothing exists for black creatures that would be good. Yeah, you can look for some Dormir. Maybe you can get like a Thief of Sanity or something like that. But all of those are kind of clunky cards, and that's assuming you ult with Kaito. Most of the time, you're probably not gonna ult with Kaito. It's like 4 or 5 turns away from ulting, so really hard to do. Um, like his plus ability and minus ability are both great on its own, but then they don't make a huge impact. Like making a 1/1 unblockable token is not a very huge impact. Her token's a lot better. It's a 2/2 with vigilance, so that's even better than a 1/1 token that's unblockable. His plus ability, yes, you draw a card, you plus one, but there's plenty of other cards or other that can kind of do that at the 3 mana range. That is just better. Namely, you got Teferi. You just play Teferi and just plus off of it, one time obviously, but like I don't know, Kaito, I don't think he's gonna work too well. Um, Next card that we might want to talk about here would maybe be Ashiot. Now Ashiot, I think could work, but I think Ashiot is better as a side deck card. I don't think you want to main Ashiot, in my opinion. Um, and I mean, I guess you could because there's a lot like his Ashiot's. Well, the Ashiot that I'm talking about is the Dream Renderer, and Ashiot, he his static ability is relevant. Like it's forces your opponent to not be able to fetch for lands. They have to deal with Ashiot before they can deal with anything else. But it's 3 mana. But excuse me here. Yeah, it's a 3 mana planeswalker that doesn't do too much else. Like yes, you can get rid of people's graveyards, but the grave hasn't been as relevant as it has been before, due to the fact that Lurrus has been banned, and so I think Ashiot still is going to reside in your side deck if you are going to be playing him, and so yeah, I don't think I would include Obscurus Charm just for the Ashiot either. So Ashiot probably not good enough. Same thing with Kaya the Orzhov Usurper. I thought about her too. Main deck wise, I don't think she plays a place in the main deck. Her minus ability is always going to be relevant. There's always going to be like a 1 mana or less creature or token or an artifact that you can always remove with her. But at the same time, same thing with Ashiot. Um, she's grave hate, and the grave is not as significant for sure. I mean, there you still have Murktide, you still have um, Living End as like kind of your main targets for grave hate. But outside of that, I found myself not caring for the grave as much recently as I have before, and so I don't think I think Kaya still in the side deck, still not good enough to play in the main, but that is an option. And then I think the last thing I think would be something you could play would be Spell Queller is another option. Now Spell Queller is definitely interesting. I mean, it like um it does stuff. Like it definitely um can be good to play, but I think it might be too slow to play in modern, and it can be easily answered. So while I thought Spell Queller could be an interesting card, I don't think it's quite um, good enough to play and use in the deck. Sorry, if you look at my hand. I'm typing on my keyboard right now. Yeah, so I don't. I thought about it. It seems good. Like you could flash Spell Queller in, essentially counterspell um, a spell, but if it gets removed, your opponent gets to cast it for free anyways. And Modern has a lot of good ways to remove stuff, and so I don't think Queller is quite good enough to play. Now those are the main sort of like um, main cards I thought about using. There's obviously a couple other good. There's probably a couple of like other Planeswalker or maybe enchantments that you can play to try to combo off with Obscura. Like the other modes of Obscura Charm is still good. Like you can still counter an instant or a sorcery, or you can use it to snipe a um, three CMC 3 or lower creature, which can still be relevant, but it is expensive. It's blue, black, white, and it's 3 mana, and I don't think you want to be countering or killing anything that's like um 2 mana or 3 mana. Like you're kind of wasting your time. Um, you're you're essentially going neg on tempo on mana tempo if you kill a 1 mana creature with its spending 3 mana to kill a 1 mana creature. It doesn't sound too good. So that mode I'm not too sure. And then the sorcery and um, instant instances in sorcery counter is relevant, but I'd much rather be able to also counter creatures. Um, so I don't know. Obscurus Charm, I will probably have to wait to see if anyone else does anything with it. I think it definitely Obscurus Charm definitely is better in like a reanimator deck, like a specifically like a an Archon reanimator, like Archon Esper reanimator, where you can bring back like Teferi, you can bring back Priest of Felguard, stuff like that, where you can kind of bring that stuff back, and then you can bring back like an Archon or something. I think that is where the charm's gonna fit in. I don't think this charm is gonna fit in this deck. I think the regular Esper charm is a better fit for this deck. The regular Esper charm where you can draw 2, you can force your opponent to discard 2, and you can kill an enchantment. I think that one's gonna be a better fit for this deck, this style of deck, rather than Obscurus charm. So that's kind of like my thought on the Obscura charm. I mean, I could totally be wrong. It can totally be like a game-breaking card, but as of right now, I don't see it as so. And so, yeah, that's not quite good enough to play in the deck right now. Um, let's see what else we got here. In terms of maybe another card we could talk about, I think there was one other card I was trying to think. Let me check my actual TCG order because I did order some new cards and I forgot exactly what I've ordered. Oh, okay. So we can talk about the land, the Esper Land. So quickly about the Esper Land, I thought about that too, because like if you fetch the Esper Land, you'll have essentially all the colors that you're gonna need. Um, I guess the problem with the Esper Land is I'm already a greedy mana base, right? Not looking at like it's just the stuff that comes in untap and is able to be played immediately. So most of these lands, if not all of them, can come in untapped, right? So you got Sunken Ruins, you have your Shockland basics. Um, I do play one check land here. It could be anything really. This is kind of just like a filter, or filler. Sorry, it's just a filler land for now. So it could be anything really. It could be another filter land if you like. It could be another sunken ruins or something else, or like a glacial or something. And then the rest is just basics and um, fetches. Now the three utility lands are going to be essentially this. So you have um, your two man lands, which I think are always going to be good. I've always used them for different situations, and they have been both really good. They both have won me games. They both like done stuff for me. So I can't say that they're bad cards. They're bad cards in the sense that one comes in tapped, one comes in maybe tapped. It has to be your first or second land in order for it to come in not tapped, and this one gives you only one color. So your utility lands, there is a cost of paying to playing them. Same thing with the trinome here. The trinome is another utility land. You can either cycle it if you don't need the third color or the fourth color, or if you need the fourth color for prismatic ending, there you go. That's what the trinome is for. Now, they the main cons of these is that they come in tapped, right? And so sometimes you'll draw two of these or a combination of it, something like that, and I end up always finding myself getting cucked by that. Like you want a -1 by mulliganing, but you also gonna have a weird hand sometimes with like um, a tap land and or maybe two of these. You'll have two of these in your hand, and it kind of sucks because you're playing. If you're going first, it's not too bad. If you're going second, playing a tap land and passing feels real bad. So um, I don't see myself playing the Esper land for that reason. Yes, it provides me with all the colors I need, but at the same time, I'd rather go fetch the trinome first and then go from there. If I wasn't playing like one of these, then I might do like two trinomes, or I might, if you aren't playing prismatic, then I would just take this out obviously and just play the Esper fetch land. Um, but yeah, I don't picture myself liking drawing two trinomes, or like a combination of one of these, and then losing because I don't have my mana up when I need it, or losing because I don't have the correct colors and stuff like that. So um, right now these are my only three utility lands. I didn't like Castle Vantress. I didn't like Otawara or E Ganjo, which is the other the white land, the legendary land. I didn't like those, mainly because they just kind of didn't work too well with the being like the were three colors. So that's my thought on the land. So I did buy one just in case in the future I do change my mind. I do want to try something with it. I did buy one of the Esper trinomes to try out. But yeah, as of right now, I can't see myself really liking the Esper trinome in an Esper deck. Ironically, um, I guess you could if you really wanted to, because I guess drown catacombs is technically a you know a tap land. You could take this out and play the trinome, and I mean I guess I could try that. I could put the Esper trinome here, and then this would be like my utility lands, and depending what I need at that time, I can fetch for whatever, and that's a good argument. But I fear that if I draw two trinomes in my opening hand, I'm gonna just lose the game right off the bat as a control deck. Control, you can't afford to really not have mana open. Like from my experience playing control, you always need your mana open. You always need it to be able to respond to your opponent's threats, to their whatever they're doing. And if you don't have your mana open, it's just you let your opponent do whatever they want to do. You have a very hard time coming back, and that's just from my experience playing control over the last couple of years. So I do fear that, and so I don't know if I will do it. I can try it out, and see how it works. I mean, there's always merits to just giving it a shot, and YOLOing it. I don't know how often it comes up. It doesn't always come up that where you draw both like both tap lands or anything like that. But there are times where it does come up and it kind of just sucks from my experience. So um, yeah. And then finally, the last card, I guess I'll go through my side deck. In the last card, I'll kind of speak about it, and that's going to be Void Ren. Now, that's an interesting card, and there's three other comparisons we can do to Void Ren, and yeah, I'll talk about that here in a second. But let me update my list here real quick. Yeah, I'm updating my tapped out at the moment. Sorry about that. Okay, so I guess I'll get update later. But all right, so in terms of my side deck or the sideboard, I did put a third Whirly March into my sideboard, um, and this I think took the place of, I forgot what it took the place of. Yeah, so this has worked against like instant speed removal has been pretty good against saga decks. There's a lot of saga decks going around. And I'm not talking about Urza Saga. I'm talking about just like red sagas that are seeing a lot of play lately. And so this has worked pretty well against saga decks. Worked well, still worked pretty relevant against uh, um, still really relevant against like a Ragavan, Darcy, Death Shadow, stuff like that. So yeah, March as an instant speed removal still pretty good. So I still like that. So that's why I added a third copy. I couldn't find room to add the third copy to my main deck, so I'm adding the third copy to my sideboard for now. So, alright, now this is the card that I might gonna be changing out. I still really like the card. Like when I do get the chance to play it, it's still really good against certain matchups like Burn, um, you know, Death Shadow and stuff like that. But since the banning of lures, it's become a lot less relevant. Um, against Murktide, it's like cool. You get rid of their graveyards a little bit, but they can still remove it with blue cards. It still doesn't do anything against Murktide. It can block Darcy if she's a 1/1. If she's flying, this doesn't do anything against Darcy. Yes, it can block Ragavan. Um, you know, but I think her as a card is not as relevant as it used to be, and so I might be swapping her out to either two cards I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about either going with Mystical Dispute, additional counter spells, additional hate against other blue decks, namely Murktide. I don't have too much trouble against other control decks. I've played against other control decks and I have a pretty good win rate against other blue-white control, Esper control, um, Jeskai control. I've actually and Bat control. I don't think I've actually lost any matches against them. So in that terms, I'm pretty confident in my control matchups, and so that's why I was a little hesitant on adding Mystical Dispute. But with the rise of Murktide at my locals, and I guess Dispute still works against like Grizzly's Death Shadow and stuff like that. So yeah, card I was thinking of swapping out to would be Dispute or Void Ren. Now, why Void Ren specifically? And so if you know what Void Ren does, is an uncounterable card, kills any permanent, non-land permanent, right? And it's Esper cost. So yeah, obviously it fits right into the deck. There's nothing I have to do in order to accommodate it. But why Void Ren and not something like a Vindicate or Anguish Unmaking? Now, Anguish Unmaking is, it's great. It does the same thing Void Ren does. Um, but I don't think it can hit. I don't think it can hit land targets. Yeah, it can't hit land targets, but you do lose 3 life, and that 3 life is actually kind of relevant, which is the main reason why I wouldn't play Anguish Unmaking. Um, so yeah, I would definitely not do that just because 3 life is tough, especially when you're playing so many shocks and fetches in this deck, and decks are very aggro. I don't think you can afford to do that. So Anguish, I never liked. Now, Vindicate, I did like. Vindicate for the reasons of popping and killing lands that I found a lot of issues with. So I would usually hit like a Tron land. I would usually hit maybe Caverns of Souls, stuff like that. Those are the target that you want to hit with Vindicate. You don't really want to spend 3 mana to hit an Urza Saga with Vindicate. That feels real bad. Like I don't like doing that. Obviously, March would do a much better job. If you're having issues with Urza Saga, which is another reason why I'm playing 3 copies, or another copy inside. If I'm playing against an Urza Saga deck, just put in the 4th copy, or the 3rd copy, and just hit Urza Saga for 1 mana. End of story. You don't want to spend, a bunch of mana trying to fight Urza Saga with Vindicate. So that's why I don't like about Vindicate. Now, the reason why I want to try out Void Ren is because the more I play, the more I find issues where the deck has difficulties dealing with other planeswalkers, especially other planeswalkers that are backed up by counter spells. Now, same thing with my deck. Like, I play my planeswalker, I back it up with counterspell, and in a control mirror, it's almost impossible to beat. If I get out Teferi first, either the 3 mana, the 5 mana Teferi, or even Jace, and I can back him up with a counterspell, it's usually game over from there. Like, your opponents can never get rid of the planeswalkers, and they can never set up their game plan. You're always gonna have resources to deal with that. In Esper, and even in Blue White Control, there's not many cards that hit Planeswalker. I've noticed that we played in the main deck. Everything that we have is generally removal for artifacts, creature, or enchantments. Nothing really to remove a Planeswalker. The only card that removes Planeswalkers in the deck at all would be either a combat to kill it with Snapcasters or your Solitudes, or to remove it with a Prismatic Ending or Teferi, the 5 mana Teferi. You minus with the 5 mana Teferi. Now, Prismatic Ending is great. It gets rid of majority of the Planeswalker, not all of them, but not very efficient either. You're trading 1-for-1 with the Planeswalker, and you're losing out on Temple when you're Prismatic Ending a Planeswalker. And then with Teferi, the 5 mana Teferi, it's a temporary solution. You tuck them back into the deck, and hopefully you have a counterspell when they do try to recast that Planeswalker. Now, it also feels bad because most of the time is like, if they have a Planeswalker, they also have a creature on board. So if you play Teferi, you minus it to get rid of the Planeswalker, your 5 mana Teferi is going to die to a 1/1 token. So 5 mana to get rid of a Planeswalker also is very inefficient, very bad for you. So that's why I also found that it's kind of difficult to deal with. It's hard dealing with like other opposing Wandering Emperors, other opposing maybe Narset, 3 mana Teferi, 5 mana Teferi. Gis is another card I've ran into trouble with. Gis is just one of those cards I've been playing against quite a few more Yawgmoth based decks, and I always find myself having a real difficult time dealing with Gis efficiently. If I didn't have a counterspell up and they resolve Gis, or they Convoke or something, Eldritch Evolution or the other Convoke card into the Gis, I just could not remove the Gis. They would make so many 1/1 tokens, my Snapcasters couldn't get over them. Or even if I had a Solitude on the board, they could just use they can double block with their tokens, and you could never get rid of the Gis, or Geist, whatever you call it. And the other issue is Gis is very good against this deck. They can just sacrifice a token and pop your Planeswalker, and that's the other issue I found with the deck. It's like Yawgmoth, for me, is an easy deck to play against, except for when they resolve Gis. Like, Yawgmoth himself is a value engine. They rarely are able to assemble the combo to kill you with like the Blood Artist, the Strangle Roots, the Young Wolf. So if they can assemble that and go infinite on you to pin you to death, that's fine, whatever. But being in control, generally they can never really assemble that combo piece together. But they can just still win by making a bunch of 1/1 tokens off of the Gist, or just Young Wolf attacking you, Strangle Root attacking you. So they go wide. If they can't beat you with the Yawgmoth, they'll go super wide, and there's only so many times you can board wipe them before they just rebuild their board really easily. Like, Undying is like, yeah, you board wipe them, the Undying creatures come back, you don't get rid of the Gist makes another 1/1 token, you try to bounce a token or something with your 3 mana Teferi, they make another 1/1 token, and then your Teferi will die like the next turn after that. So that's from my experience. I have a hard time removing it. The only way I can deal with Gist is with prismatic ending, and even then, like I can prismatic ending them a few times. They just keep getting, they keep bringing Gist back onto the board somehow, and I just can't keep up with that. And that's what the whole like situation I found myself dealing with when I was playing against Yawgmoth decks, and obviously other Planeswalkers deck. Like if they resolve your Teferi, or they resolve a Teferi, a 3 mana one. You can't get if they can back it with counter spells. You're shit out of luck. You're losing this game for sure. Or to resolve a 5 mana Teferi, you can't prismatic ending it anymore because it's a 5 mana planeswalker. So you can't really deal with that. Same thing with like a Jace. Jace you can deal with. You could spend 4 mana with prismatic ending to remove the Jace. But issue with that is that you spent 4 mana, they plus one already, and you're tapped out now. So it's like, you know. So, and if they had a counterspell, if you try to prismatic ending them, and then they counterspell you, then it's like, oh shit, I spent 4 mana to do nothing. They spent 2 mana to counter me, and they still got the Jace or Teferi on the board. You're gonna be in a losing situation there. So, from my experience, that's my reasoning for gotta think about trying out Void Ren. Void Ren is so okay. You can play against Murktide. You can side in against Murktide. It's uncounterable, so you can blast a Murktide, you can blast a Ragavan. You obviously don't want to blast a Ragavan with the Void Ren. It's like I mentioned, you're spending 3 manas to kill a 1 mana thing. Might not be too worth it, but if worst comes to worst, you can blast that, and then they can't really counter it. You can blast a Gist, or Geist, however you pronounce the Planeswalker's name. I totally forgot. But you're spending 3 mana with March or prismatic ending anyways. So spending 3 mana for a a Void Ren won't make a difference. So you're not plus you're uncounterable. You're still gonna lose out to summer veils. So be careful if they have veils. They can still make it hexproof and all. Yes, I have the Aether Gust. Aether Gust does kind of deal with it, but Aether Gust is a temporary solution to the whole problem itself. Like you can Aether Gust back the Gist when they cast it, or if it's on board, but they can just replay it next turn. So it kind of like it's like maybe it can work, maybe it can't work. So I'm a little bit iffy about using Aether Gust as like the problem solver for that particular card. So yeah, Void Ren. You can also blast other bigger planeswalkers. You can blast other Teferis. You can blast like an Ugin or a Karn Liberator if you ever see those. You can blow up basically any permanent you want that's not on land. So I think Void Ren, 2 Void Ren is gonna take the place of the Sanctifier for now, and I will try it out. I think that's probably the card that isn't gonna see a whole lot of modern play just because Esper control is not a very popular archetype. You're better off with blue white for a less greedier mana base I guess I would say a more consistent mana base. So and the whole there's very few black cards that you want to play in this deck because black and white they kind of do the same thing in some sense. Like the only other black card that you might want to consider that's really good to play would be like a Thoughtseize or something like that. But I've since moved away from Thoughtseize in this particular deck. So yeah, I think Void Ren is gonna go into the slot here. We're not gonna worry about graveyard removal as much. I still have a lot of graveyard hate in terms of Resting Peace and Kaya's Guile, and so I think those will be okay. We'll have enough graveyard hate for any decks that are gonna combo off the graveyard, stuff like that. So yeah, Void Ren. That's gonna probably take the place of this once I do receive them. I don't know when that's gonna be coming in, so can't really say too much about that. The rest of the extra deck or Cyborg still the same. Same from last time. Yeah, not much else is different. So I guess the one card I did take out was that I did take out Kaya's the Usurper for another Worldly March. So I think I made those changes. So these three are going out, or the Kaya and the two Sanctifier are going out for March and two Void Rens. So I think that's the main changes I'm going to make to the sideboard. And I think that I took out Fatal or Fracturing Gust for a Dam because I just wanted more just cheaper removal board wipes. So I added another Dam in. Um, to also help fight against like Yawgmoth decks, any deck that goes wide, any other artifact decks that go wide. Dam is gonna be pretty good there. Aether Gust I still think is one of the best cards in the sideboard, especially against a majority of the decks. And so it works really well. It doesn't solve every issue, but it definitely buys you time to try to solve those issues. Um, you know, if you can like Aether Gust back a Geist or Blood Moon or something like that, then if they try to play it again, hopefully you have like some sort of counter spell up to be able to deal with that. And also it gets around Veil. So like these three cards are good against getting around Veil, good against getting around Cavern of Souls. So that's why I still like to settle these. I still like Aether Gust. And Kai's Guile I still really like. In certain matchups, this card is game breaking against certain matchups, and you just kind of win when you cast multiple of them. And really good there. Rest in Peace, still pretty good. Great against Undying stuff. Great against Yawgmoth. Still good against like Murktide, stuff like that. If you can cast this on the Murktide deck, they're gonna have to try to beat you down with like Ragavan and Darcy. They're never gonna be able to cast Murktide anymore, which is kind of good. Vito, still great. There's still a lot of combo decks out there that can't deal with this. I still play against a ton of combo decks in my particular meta. Just recently, I played against a mono red combo deck that cheats out Fel Guardian plus the new 6-mana Birthing Pod Vivian, and that was kind of an interesting deck to see play and to play against. So they always have like Summoner's Pack or Pack of Negation, and so when you just negate like their combo, they can't really pack this card. That's what you really want to go for. So, and this is good against other control decks too. Like you play against Murktide, you can even play this. You play against other blue-white control decks. Dolan's Veto is pretty good against that. So yeah, so that's my cyborg for the most part. And in terms of the game, I went to play Magic a couple days ago on Friday, and I ended up getting third place. I think there was like 9 or 10 players. So yeah, I got third place. So round one, I played against Yawgmoth. I unfortunately lose to Yawgmoth just because I couldn't deal with the Geist. He was able to resolve Geist all the time, so and didn't have counter spells up and stuff like that. So I lose to Yawgmoth round one. Round two, I think I got a bye. Round three, I played against Boris Burn, against someone I knew. Their record was kind of bad, so we just played it out for fun, and they gave me the win. And then round four, I played against the mono red combo deck where they try to cheat in a bunch of stuff. So let me talk about that matchup because I think that matchup's the most interesting matchup of them all, of all the 3 games I did get to play. So basically, game one, he tries to impulse mana a lot, like with Metamorphosis, stuff like that. But I kept countering it, so the game one went to me really quickly because combo deck players have a hard time dealing with control, which is understandable. Nothing to rag about on sort of combo decks, but their main weakness is control decks. So game two, where it gets interesting. Game two, I misplayed a little bit, but I was able to still win, just because of the interactions I had. So I think game two, he goes first, and then he goes Cavern of Souls on turn 3. I had 2 mana, I had two blue source, whatever. And that's how I was like, I think he's like, oh, he's gonna play Blood Moon. It's mono red. Why the hell wouldn't they play Blood Moon? So I was ready to counter the Blood Moon. He goes Cavern of Souls, calling I think Wizards, and then he calls Magnus the Moon on me. I was like, oh shit. So like I was like, all right. So he got Magnus the Moon. All right. So I'm okay right now because I think I have a Trinome and a an island on board. So um, what I should have done, I was being a little dumb. I should have kept the island in hand and play my fetch land, because I had a fetch. I had three lands in hand. I had, I think, this plus the um, plus a trinome, something like this. So I go turn one, I just played this. Turn two, I did this. I don't know why I did that. I think I was just like, oh, okay, if I can just anticipate or discourage him from trying to play a blood moon. In my mind, I guess I was trying to discourage him from playing a blood moon and playing something else I can counter, not wasting time on blood moon. But he just goes Magnus on me, and I was like, I should have just played the Flooded Strand instead and crack in response to it. And then next turn I can still do play the island. So my mistake there, I totally fubbered that one. Um, Playing against mono red, that sequencing your land is very important. You always want to play your fetches and maybe not even crack them at all, especially against a blood moon deck, and wait until they play something that is like a blood moon or a Magnus. Then you crack your lands in response. Um, yeah, by cracking your land before that and just building your mana base with all three colors is kind of a bad idea against them. But you always want at least an island and at least one plains on your battlefield when playing against a Blood Moon deck, because then you can use prismatic endings, you can use your Aether Gust, stuff like that to get rid of their Blood Moon. In my case though, I had another. I top deck another island, so I go for my third turn. I instead of playing my fetch land, I just go like that, right? So I have two island and a Ragavan and a counter spell in hand. His turn, he goes. He plays. He attempts to cast another Magnus. Obviously, this time, Cavern of Soul is a mountain. I'm sure he realized that. But anyways, he goes into that. I go 3. I counterspell the Magnus. So I get rid of the Magnus. He attacks me for 2. Okay, fine. My turn. I go untap. I play my fetch land, and I essentially just passed. Right. So now in my hand, however, I have a Snapcaster. So he goes. He does his turn. I don't think I think he sets up for like Revels of Riches or something like that. So he gets like a token, a treasure token. I think he's gonna try to combo off. Is his main idea. So he attacks me. Why not, right? Seeing that I'm just all I have is 2 blue island and a mountain, or 2 mountains, right? 2 islands and a mountain. So why wouldn't he attack me? He attacks me. I go all right. And enter blocker. I go tap 2, play my Snapcaster, and in my graveyard I have a counter spell. So I go Snapcaster. I give flashback to counter spell. I block the Magnus, and then I say go ahead. And he just looks at his hand and he looks at my graveyard, seeing that I have counter spell in my graveyard that I flashback with the Snapcaster. He goes pass. So I was like, oh man, that was a huge turn. I think if I didn't do that, he would have straight up just combo and win from there. Like there was nothing else to do. So being that chance, I was able to crack my land, get my white source, I think. So now I'm like basically protected against Blood Moon. I didn't think I have any black cards. I think I took out all my black cards against this particular matchup because I don't think Kaya's Gaio and Dam was gonna do anything. So I took out all my black cards and I just sided in a bunch of like what did I side in? Let me take a look at my side deck right here. I think I sided in March. I think Sanctifiers. I think Doran's Veils for sure. Aether Gustus for sure. And I thought about siding in Subtlety, but I didn't know what his deck was really doing, so I didn't side in the Subtleties. In hindsight, I should have, considering he was playing Caverns of Souls and stuff like that, and he was playing a lot of creatures, and I think I did see the Vivian the first game, because I think the first game he goes Metamorphosis, double green, hardcast the Vivian, and I totally forgot about that. So I forgot that he can technically hardcast Vivian if he needed to, and so my mistake was not playing the siding in the subtlety. But I think this was what I was siding in against him, and so anyway, so the game goes on. I think he does eventually get out the Fel Guardian plus the Vivian to try to combo off. Luckily for me, I had a Worldly March, so when Vivian was before Vivian resolved or is resolving, I spent 5 mana to get rid of the Fel Guardian, and then that was it. That was game because he couldn't combo off anymore with the Felguardian combo. So I saved myself there because I think his main idea of his deck is to get Vivian out, the Felguardian, plus or minus with the Vivian, get out Felguardian, flash the Vivian, do the same thing, sack off the Felguardian, blink Vivian, get out another creature that brings back Felguardian. I forgot the name of the creature. My apologies there. It was a new deck, so I didn't quite remember all the cards he was playing. But the main two cards was Vivian, the 6 mana Vivian, and the Felguardian Blinker dude, and like a couple other like red cards like Revel in Riches, all the Impulse red mana cards, stuff like that. So yeah, the game went on for like a couple more turns after that, and I was able to get the upper advantage. Eventually, just he scoops because his combo was broken, and I had enough removal and threats on the board. Eventually, I think I get out Teferi, I get out stuff like that, and so he couldn't combo off anymore. So yeah, I think by just a miracle there, I survived. I was able to 2-0 the combo red combo. Like I heard earlier in the tournament, he was doing really well too. He was basically, I think, undefeated. I was paired up against him, but I think he was undefeated, or maybe he lost one. I wasn't too sure, but he was killing mono red and other decks in turn 2 or turn 3. He had turn 2 and turn 3 kills against me because I had counter spells and stuff like that. He couldn't pull it off, but yeah, it was kind of crazy. Like I heard from his other opponents that he was just killing them left, right, left and right by turn 2 and 3, and I was like, dang, that's a real quick clock there. Wouldn't think it would be possible like that, and so yeah, I felt a little proud of myself for those type of plays. I was able to um, you know get through his combo and survive. Because I think one point when he resolves the Vivian, I messed up and I let Vivian sack the Felguardian off because I wasn't too familiar what kind of line of play he was going for, so I kind of just didn't respond properly, and I let it resolve. And then he started to combo off. I was like, oh, okay, this is the time I probably shouldn't let this go off a second time. Otherwise, I'm probably dead from here. And that's when I got rid of the Felguardian, and it was able to kind of come back from the game from there. And yeah, so yeah, for now, I think those are the changes I'm making to my deck. Um, and yeah, I'll probably go to another tournament on Monday or whatever. I won't have the Void Rens ready to play yet, but when I do get the Void Rens in, I think they're gonna do a pretty good job at um, answering a lot of threats that I can't answer with my usual suite of removal. Like removing creatures is not too bad. It's just removing planeswalkers is like the difficult thing. I mean, I could play something like Faithful Absence, I guess, but I don't want to give my opponent card draw. And that feels real bad. Like in a lower power format like Pioneer and stuff like that, Faithful Absence is not bad. You could pop a planeswalker, pop a creature, destroy it, give them a clue token. Great. And most of the time in those formats, I'm also playing Narset. But in this particular deck, since I'm not playing Narset, it doesn't feel too good to give my opponent card advantage. Like I can hope that they draw into something useless, but they draw into like something that is gonna win the game, and I don't have mana to counter it. It's like eh. So I decided not to play Faithful Absence. I'd rather spend cards from my hand to get rid of their stuff, like with Subtlety or March, rather than giving them more card advantage. So I didn't think that was going to be a good idea to do that. So that's why I didn't play that. So yeah, I'll play out. I'll play the Void Ren, see how that goes. I probably will wait on the Obscura Charm to see how that does work. I think Esper Charm is better in the deck than Obscura Charm for this particular deck. So I'll wait to see if there's some cool combos. But I think Obscura Charm, in my opinion, is going to be better in a Reanimator shell, like the Archon Esper deck, and not so much in this particular deck. But yeah, that's it. That's all I got for you guys. I know it kind of went a little long, even though I didn't really change too much about the deck, but I wanted to talk about some of my experiences and some of my thoughts on some of the new Capenna cards and stuff like that. So I hope you guys enjoy, and we'll see you guys next time.